Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's new episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL. And man, are we going to talk about Fallout? What a show. Numbers are being broken left, right, and center. As a matter of fact, we have a report here from Clobreel, which we will read verbatim about some pretty interesting Steam numbers. Obviously, Jeff Grubb, if you don't know who he is, well, he has one of the best dues in the business. The main is the main. And obviously, he made an appearance on Crossfire this past Friday. And obviously, Crossfire is something that will always be dear to my heart because it's where I started. Mooch and Crap Gamer. Now, I know Crap's kind of out of the scene. I know Mooch has kind of changed the way that the show is done. It's very PlayStation heavy. Nothing wrong with that. A little toxic for my taste. I'm be honest with you. I haven't been on in a couple of years, but it's where I started. Well, Jeff Grubb was a guest, and and poor Jeff, he ruffled a lot of feathers with the PlayStation Nation, talking about potentially PlayStation, and he was just reiterating what Hiroki Totoki said about having to look elsewhere outside of the PlayStation gamers because, well, come on, folks, call a spade a spade. You PlayStation gamers, you don't buy games. You play Twitter. You don't play games. That's a fact. Sorry if it insults you, but that is a good portion of the most loudest of members of that community. And again, sorry if it did, but before we get to that, that's going to be on the back end of the conversation. We're going to talk about Fallout. But we are going to get into, folks, a very interesting interview with Todd Howard regarding other franchises. And it doesn't look good. Now, I don't know if that is currently going to change based on the success. This is one of the biggest shows for Amazon as of yet. And I think that really is going to change based on the success of the show. But we will get into all of that. Let's get into the introductions first. Gamsley, what's up, my brother? How you feeling?
What's
Welcome back.
up? I'm good. I'm ready for this. I've been watching the Fallout television show. I'm so happy and I'm ready to talk about it. I'm having a blast with that stuff. I had a good weekend. Everything's just going my way, so I'm ready. I'm ready to talk. Let's do this.
Yeah, and it's good to have you back, brother. Listen, again, FYI,
Yeah.
folks, no spoilers. We're not going to ruin it for you. If you are someone, and I've seen a lot of people in the chat already that have busy lives and you haven't had a chance to get into it, do not worry. We're not going to spoil the ending. Actually, matter of fact, it was spoil it for me because Mrs. Boom and I watched episodes 1 through 6 over the weekend, and we're watching episodes 7 and 8 this evening to kind of close out the series. And we enjoyed it so much we may even watch it again. Yeah, so no spoilers. Don't worry about that.
Yeah,
Fuzzy
heavy
Belvedere.
spoilers, guys. Heavy,
Yeah,
heavy
no.
spoilers.
Hey, Fuzzy, how you feeling, brother? Welcome back.
Oh, I'm great. Glad to be here with you guys, man. Like you said, one of those is also enjoying the TV series so much so that I hopped back into Fallout 4,
Yep.
adding some mods to it. A little disappointed that it's not play anywhere, but there's kind of workarounds on that to some extent. But yeah, a lot to talk about. So much stuff that's positive these past few weeks as far as for Xbox. So looking to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And making his second debut on this chat on this particular show, Game Pass Dad. What's going on, my brother? Welcome back.
It's good to be back. Right down to the wire again today, but glad I can make it back on time. And really excited about this Fallout show. I feel I really have been enjoying it, and I think I'm gonna follow Fuzzy hopping back in on some Fallout action here soon. But definitely excited to talk about it and good to be here.
Yeah, well, it's great. It's great to have you back. And yeah, like Fuzzy, myself, I re-downloaded it. Originally, it was only downloaded via Game Pass because I do have the disc version somewhere. I bought it years ago, so obviously I was like, you know what? Let me see if it's on sale. And sure enough, it is currently the Game of the Year edition with all of the DLCs and all the bells and whistles. It's $10. So I dropped $10 down on it because obviously I wanted to own it. The whole reason for me getting it again was in anticipation of April 25th, which is next week, and that is when the 4K next generation upgrade, well, the free upgrade is going to be dropping for Xbox. It's going to be dropping for Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S, as well as PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4. So obviously they're not leaving anyone behind. If you have a console or at least one of those consoles, you'll be able to get the free upgrade. You'll be able to play it in 4K 60, which is what I'm looking forward to. But I couldn't wait. The hype got to me, like the FOMO got to me, ladies and gentlemen. So I started playing Fallout 4. I actually did a short of the opening because I don't remember playing the game. I know I did, and I have achievements to prove it, but I don't remember practically anything of the game. So I did a little bit of a short when you first get the Pip-Boy and you open the button. So, again, I'm just doing some different things to the channel, kind of, reignite engagement, if you will. So you'll see some shorts of controllers. You'll see some shorts of video games, and hopefully you like them enough to hit the like button. But let's open up with what Clobriel had to say. Now, anytime you see a film that is video game flavored, anytime you see a show that isn't a train wreck, right, that does something that moves you as a human, but as a gamer, something like The Last of Us, for instance. Mrs. Boom and I watched it. There were a couple of episodes that were so good and so engaging for us that we rewatched them multiple times. And obviously, it won awards all over the place. It was an amazing show. And unfortunately, the first Halo season, even though I liked it, I didn't love it. And, we were waiting to see what the Halo season 2 was going to be. That turned out to be a banger. But talking about Fallout, well, Clobriel put out a tweet, as he does. One of my favorite, Xbox posters on X or Twitter, whatever your flavor is. And he put out something that was pretty interesting. Now, Fallout 76 is one of those games, Fuzzy Belvedere, that came the way of a lot of controversy. I bought it for the Power Armor helmet. I didn't buy it for the game because it was an MMO and I knew I wasn't going to play it. I did put some time into it. I didn't like it. I haven't been back since. But it turns out that the FOMO and how good this show is and will continue to be, because they already have greenlit season 2, and they're going to start working on that, would imagine, immediately. He wrote, Fallout 76 has just achieved its highest player count ever on Steam. Like, that is crazy when you consider how long ago this game came out. And obviously, they just released Fallout Atlantic City Boardwalk Paradise. But you see, that's not the only one. We also saw some tweets that come along of Paris Lily, who was confirming, thanks to the series, the Fallout hype is real. Happy to see old and new players jumping into Fallout 3, 4, and 76, as well as Fallout New Vegas, which, again, if you didn't know, folks, FYI, public service announcement, if you are an Amazon Prime member, you can get Fallout 76 for both Xbox and PC for free, but you can also get the deluxe edition of Fallout New Vegas for the PC as well. Definitely do not let those go by the wayside. Just hit the download button, or just collect them on your Amazon Prime account. Don't let them go by the wayside. And again, if you're finding Fallout for the first time, folks, I'm gonna be a little bit of a fanboy here. Fallout New Vegas by Obsidian is chef's kiss. It's just so good. But let's talk about this, because there is something to be said about these resurgent numbers, and they're coming across the board. As a matter of fact, we have here a story that was written by WindowsCentralGaming.com. It was posted by Samuel Tolbert, who says the Fallout franchise sees player count resurgence across all games thanks to sales, promotions, and the excellent TV series. Let's kind of like pick wherever path you want to go. Talk about the TV series, talk about the games. Did you enjoy it? Are you going to watch it again? Let's talk about it, man.
Well, I'm at episode 6 right now.
Okay.
So I'm pretty early on as far as episode 6. So only like 3 episodes left to it, and I'll probably wind up watching it again because Fallout 4 was my first dive into the Fallout universe for the most part, and I did that back when it first launched. I went and bought the collector's edition with the guide and the map and all that other stuff back when it first came out in like physical form. And then I wound up buying the Game of the Year edition, I think around the time the Xbox One X came out. So I had already had that on both Xbox as far as the disc as well as the digital version. Got into it, but didn't make it that far. It didn't quite grab me as much as I had hoped. I figured Fallout would be more maybe zombie-like as far as the post-apocalyptic world and everything, but it didn't quite grab me as much as what I had hoped. But after Starfield, looking back at a lot of the mechanics for that, and then applying what I know from that to Fallout 4 now makes it a whole lot better. But the thing that got me to look at Fallout 4 again was the TV show. And at first I was like, I'll probably wait until after, everybody's kind of like calmed down about it and stuff. But I was like, nah, you know what? Let me at least check it out. And it's something me and my wife can sit down and watch. Now, she's more into horror films and zombie flicks, but her zombie flicks are more of like the B movie kind where it's all about slashing and campy, dialogue kind of stuff. I'm more about like the 28 days type of deal, or like the what was it? The day after, not the day after, but the one where they were in the mall, that more recent one. And then there's
Dawn of the Dead, I think that's was.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead. Mm-hmm. But we both watched it. I was expecting her not to really, like it, because it was one of those things where we always have this back and forth about, video game movies or shows relating to video games. She believes the Resident Evil movies are better than the game. I say the otherwise. The games are better than the movies. But outside of that, we both enjoyed it. Loved the characters. Loved the action that's involved in it. Love the fact that they actually use the source material as reference points, like a lot of things that you notice in the game or clearly in the show, and that they took the time to, I guess, whether they, people that were directing or writing for this took time to actually play the game, or maybe they were fans of the series beforehand. You could tell that there was, some sort of involvement in either, reading the lore or at least, playing the game or watching gameplay of it and stuff like that, as far as, how everything was translated into the show. So great to see that people are returning to the game like that. That's, I think, the whole purpose of how this video game, like, what do they call it? Transmedia, as far as, you have a game turn into a movie, or you turn a movie into a game. And in the past, like growing up, most of the time, if a movie was turned into a video game, it was a crappy one. Like E.T. is a perfect example. But outside of that, like, we've gotten, not we, but a lot of studios and publishers and everything have gotten way better as far as the transition from movie to video game, whether it's RoboCop, whether it's, The Last of Us, or even now with Fallout. And there's many others that have gotten better over time, like the more recent, Super Mario Brothers. The first one was funny, but it didn't really, jive with the video game per se kind of thing. But for the most part, this was a pleasant surprise. Was not really expecting it to be as good. Not knocking Halo or anything like that, because Halo just isn't as much of my jam. But I've heard a lot of the fans say how it didn't respect, I guess, the lore of the game as much first season. I mean, I can kind of understand them wanting to go in a slightly different direction. Being a fan of The Walking Dead, I've seen how that series kind of deviated from the books and stuff like that. But this has been, even though it's its own individual story, even though it's not replicating the actual game per se as far as an existing version of the game, but you can tell that it feels like it's in that universe, and that whoever put this together, respected that type of detail in that universe to make this its own story. And it's a wonderful one. So definitely, anybody on the fence, definitely check it out. Whether you've played Fallout or not, I would say this is one of the better video game to movie or TV series type of transitions. Kudos to Amazon. Like, they they really knocked it out of the park with this one, and it will more than likely at least get you back to looking at Fallout 76, which that was more of like my sons were into that more so than me. So I'll
Yeah.
probably wait until I finish Fallout 4 before I even step up to 76. Plus, there's the graphical update or the next gen update that's coming to
Yep.
Fallout 4 later this month. So looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, listen, obviously Todd Howard played a huge part in this. Exactly how much was he on set? Did he direct? Did he, how much of hands-on did he have, Gamsley? We don't know. We know that he was a part of it. He's an executive producer. We're going to talk about some of the things he said during that interview that are both exciting, but at the same time, a bit perplexing. But I want to keep on pace with the show and the fact that the games are the resurgence in all of the games, not just maybe Fallout 76, which is an MMO, Gamsley. We're talking Fallout 3 has seen record sales. Fallout 4, they're all on sale. This is a concentrated effort. This isn't by accident. They knew exactly what they were doing, and this is phenomenal marketing. I would imagine that its sales are up on everything, both on PlayStation, on PC, on Xbox, and for good reason. The show was phenomenal. The attention to detail is fantastic. These are characters that you're meeting for the first time. This is a vault or vaults that you're seeing for the first time in the overarching Fallout narrative. There's a lot to get excited about. How has your experience been with the show? But more importantly, Gamsley, are you even surprised that there's been this resurgence across the board on all the games?
Yeah, to that question, no, I'm not surprised. Well, I am kind of, so I think I have to admit that I've been wrong on this one. I thought that it wouldn't move the needle that much. I think I'm on record in multiple podcasts saying that. I didn't know if it was going to land. That's why. I didn't know if this was going to be a Halo situation or whatever. So I was very surprised that this landed at the praise that it was landing with critics, and I was like, oh man, this might take off, this might be a big thing, and I was super happy. So what I'm not surprised about is Fallout being Fallout and Fallout being amazing. The thing that I think lends really well to a TV show is that the main character and characters around her or whatever was never really the focus of a Fallout game, right? It was the world itself. It was a blank slate of that world, right? It's a blank slate of those characters that you create, and you go along the world and experience it as you experience it. Fallout is a convoluted story that most players won't understand, right? To get the full thing out of a Fallout game, you got to read everything. You got to go in databases. Depending on who you are, you will experience Fallout very differently from different people. And I think having those blank slates and having zero expectations on certain characters and having to build Master Chief like Halo, right? They had a blank slate. They could make a character, bring you across the world that they've already built, that's canon. It just makes so much sense. I love how they explain the world. I love how easy it is to understand in the TV show. They did a really good job in really laying out what these people are, what these factions are, what locations you're visiting are, what happened. I think they keep the intrigue level there, just like the games. I think it's awesome. I think it's really well done. You can tell the person that got this was a super fan. I don't know if that's true. I don't know much about the director, but you could tell he.
Oh,
he
well,
loves
it's
this.
it's Christopher Nolan's brother.
Oh my god! Okay, yeah. Yeah, so he must. I don't know if he's like a huge fan of this series, but he knows the world, and I'm sure Todd had a lot to do with that. But he put a lot of love in it, and he's taking us on a journey of this blank slate character that we have never met, and I'm loving it. We don't have expectations on the character. You know what I mean? Like we don't have any weight to put on the main character. We don't know her. We don't have expectations of her. So I'm just enjoying the the ride and the story that they're bringing me on. The games, I love how everybody's like, oh my god, Fallout games are good? That's crazy. Oh my god, Bethesda is actually amazing at freaking environmental storytelling? Who would have thought, huh? We like to forget that part, but yeah, I'm not surprised. The Fallout world is big for a reason, and people love this series for a reason, and I'm so excited that people are jumping into the older games and experiencing that, and I can't wait for what's new in these like already built worlds. And I hope they could keep the momentum, and I hope they could bring us to new locations and tell new stories.
You know what? I love it. I love what you're putting down, and I think you're onto something. And again, if you go back to Friday's Breakfast with Boom, I originally wrote the show to bring smoke to Bethesda and Xbox, saying, "Hey, man, you got this amazing show coming out. What about the 4K update?" And you know what? I didn't even have to do that because they talked about it, and it's coming next week. Now again, I don't know if that was on purpose. Maybe they got the 4K update out of the way for the sales of the games and to let the show be its own thing. And of course, on the 25th, we get this free update. I like I said, I'm playing sparingly, but I'm having a very difficult time because of FOMO. And look, I got Dragon's Dogma. I got a bunch of Nintendo games that I bought that I have not. The Mario versus Donkey Kong. I haven't even put anything. I even bought the Princess Peach game because listen, my nephew hangs out all the time, and I'm a Nintendo nerd. Sorry.
FOMO is a thing, huh? Boom. It's really
yes,
strong, isn't it?
It is very strong. It's the force is strong with this one, and I couldn't. I said, you know what? Let me just design my character, right? I'm gonna tweak it, the nose, the ears, the eyes, and I said, okay, there you go. And I'm like, I'm gonna play for 5 minutes just because I don't remember anything. And that 5 minutes turned into 2 hours. And I'm like, what am I doing? I want to experience this in 4K 60. Stop playing, goddammit.
I want to just shout out something before we move on and add to the things we're saying. Guys, Fallout games are very different from each other, depending on what location it is, depending on what time period it is in the canon. You're going to have a very different experience. Vegas is very much a Obsidian game, so if you're looking to pop in and you like Obsidian games and you like choice, Vegas is that. If you like Bethesda a lot, jump into Fallout 3, and if you like MMOs or you like that kind of community building experience, 76 is there, and I think they're all solid Fallout games in themselves. So depending on what you like, choose very carefully. And I would also be hesitant on the older games, only because it is very hard to play, because the controls are not very intuitive. But just jump in, guys.
Absolutely. Listen, before we bring in Game Pass Dad, get his hot take on the show and the success of the games in the last couple of days. Couple of shout outs. First of all, Lad in the chat, LAD, has dropped a code, an Xbox code for Fallout 76. Brother, that is very generous of you. If you won that code, by all means, please thank that man. That's very kind of Lad to do so. We have here Starfield Guy drops a very generous £2 super chat. And yes, we're going to talk about that exclusively. Starfield TV show next, please. Yeah, I hope I don't break your heart with this one. Todd Howard has some things to say, but I think that those answers are going to change just clearly based on the success of this particular show. Decado in the chat, my brother, he drops a very generous 5 double barrel gaming memberships. Dude, that is crazy generous of you. Thank you so much. That is awesome. We super appreciate the help here, and you are amazing, brother. Andre Doyle drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Fallout is amazing. Awesome panel. Y'all, I'm enjoying my new Log 15 RTX 4050 13th generation 144 hertz gaming laptop ready for Hellblade 2. Hashtag Xbox gaming is fun. Yeah. Brother, that is a nice setup you have there. good on you. I'm gonna enjoy it at 30 frames on my Series X that I bought and on my tip of the spear TV. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get into PC gaming. Maybe at some time, but Dreamcast. I'm gonna say Dreamcast Dad, Game Pass Dad. Is there a Dreamcast dad? Because there's a Dreamcast guy. That guy's a bit of a troll. I don't know. Is there a Dreamcast dad
Let's
out
not
there?
bring him in there.
Yeah, no, please, no. Yeah, I'm sorry. I mentioned his
I guess
name.
I'm also a bit of a troll sometimes too. It's okay.
No, you're not a troll. You have fun, and there's a difference, sir. Game Pass dad. Listen. Again, the TV series I think does check all the boxes. Now, no TV series adaptation is ever going to be perfect in everyone's eyes. I know there's a couple of people. I know some people mentioned Angry Joe didn't like it. Okay, I mean that's his shtick that he doesn't like things. It's fine. I loved it. A lot of people on the panel loved it. A lot of people in the chat loved it. But I'm interested to get your take on the show. But more importantly, the raging success of the games and some of the numbers that are being broken. Like for instance, Fallout 76 saw record-breaking, never before seen numbers this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, like, Fuzzy bringing up, like, the power of, like, the cross-promotion through the different formats of media, like, how powerful it can be to even reinvigorate games that are, like, decades old at this point. Like, there's people jumping into Fallout 3, there's people jumping into New Vegas, there's people jumping into Fallout 4, and even revived a game that everyone thought was dead on arrival at 76, which admittedly, like, I'm about to jump into that one with some friends because
Nice.
they have done a lot of work to make that game playable, and there's a very strong community around it, but now there's like 40,000 people playing it on Steam alone is absolutely insane. But I do think it's going to send a strong message to, like, kind of reinforces that message, because we've seen, like, this isn't a new type of marketing either. To that point, like, we grew up with this, like G.I. Joe, Transformers, Power Rangers, Pokemon,
Yes.
like TV shows sell product. It's just our toys today are video games. Like, it's the same sort of thing. It's not a new concept. So I really enjoy the fact that video games are being taken seriously and not as an afterthought, and that they're telling, like, serious, like, adult stories in this case with these game television shows, because The Last of Us was absolutely masterful. It's just as good as any of the most amazing, like, TV shows have been put out by HBO or otherwise. And I would put this right up there. Like, this is probably my new favorite, like, Amazon series that I would say, because I really enjoy it, because they did a great job of staying true to, like, the set pieces, the story, the world. They brought the world to life, and then they're telling a new original story that also expands on the background. Like, it adds another way to, like, as a vessel to, like, detail, like, the lore of the universe to everybody. So it's true to the source material, it's believable, and it's really, like, I really enjoyed my watching experience. Like, there was not very many downtimes or anything that I really wanted to skip through, because sometimes I'll admit I get a little impatient. I like to skip through some things because I don't have a lot of time to sit around and, and like just watch TV all the time. So sometimes I'll just rush through things a little bit and then rewatch it later on. But this really kind of held me from start to finish, and, like, I finally finished it. I stayed up, like, because we were in the car yesterday, and I watched like 2 episodes in the car, and then I stayed up to watch the last episode after I got done streaming last night. And at 4 a.m. yesterday, I was like, just finished watching Fallout, and the only thing I had to say was, I want more. Like, it left me wanting more, which is always a great thing with any sort of media or entertainment. And I'm really excited to see where it goes. And I was doing some reading, like, preparing for coming on here beforehand as well. And, like, Gamesley had said, like, this has obviously been created by someone who is a fan of the series and who loves it. And Jonathan Nolan was talking about how much he enjoyed the uniqueness of the Fallout universe, and, like, the campiness and, like, the gonzoism of everything, and just how it was so much different than anything else in media that he'd seen. And it comes from him, who is obviously a fan of Fallout, but also one of the showrunners, created some of my favorite shows of all time with Silicon Valley and The Office, which most people definitely know about The Office. If you don't know about Silicon Valley, and you have HBO, that's a must-watch Mike Judge production. But yeah, just overall, like I feel like they knocked it out of the park. I didn't go into it like doing a lot of background like investigation of who created or anything like that, which I would have even more confidence at that point if I had read. But just off the trailer alone, I really was expecting this to be at the very least good, because I mean, most of what Walton Goggins is in is very watchable to me.
He's
He
exceptional.
is,
He's exceptional.
My God.
Really awesome.
You know what someone mentioned in one of the comments I was reading, that he would be an excellent Joker.
Oh man.
And
Yeah,
God,
I can
that
see
is
it.
his role that he has not gotten yet. Yup.
But on top of that, like it really makes me hope that this sends a message. Like between this and Last of Us, like honestly, like Halo, I never gave like a fair shake. Like I haven't tried to dive into the second season yet. I think I watched
Dude, you
like,
have to. It's
first
so
episode of the
good.
second season. I heard it was an improvement. But when you see things like the Borderlands movie coming out, like, and how there's such mixed reviews there, I do still have faith in that, because of the fact that it does seem like they nailed the set pieces and the special effects and all of that. There are definitely some controversial casting choices that not everyone can get behind, which I'm still willing to give it a shot. But if that does not perform up to its expectations, I do feel like a lot of studios will go back to the drawing board when it comes to bringing out these gaming movies, and not just try and, like, I mean, maybe that one's shooting for more of a broader audience, but I really hope it makes them wake up and just see like, hey, we got to take this seriously, and we got to nail it. And it's okay to tell original stories, but we got to make sure we're staying true to the source material. But overall, it's a definitely must watch in my book.
Now, are you surprised with the fact that the games have seen this massive resurgence?
Not at all. Like honestly, like it just makes you nostalgic. Like if you already played the games, it makes you nostalgic for the times that you had with it before, because you're spending time in that universe, and you're just sitting there thinking about like, oh, all the cool things I could be doing right now, or I want to go smash some rad roaches. But like, or for me, it's like I never played Last of Us, but I was familiar with the story and everything. But I definitely am going to eventually play Last of Us on PC. After watching and enjoying The Last of Us, like that's just an amazing story in and of itself, and an amazing world also. But I mean, when you spend time, like anyone, like it's such a major vessel, like something that's like, I don't know what the numbers are on movies. I don't really pay in TV shows, but I mean, it's something that's way more like mainstream and like socially acceptable, which gaming is becoming like amazingly mainstream at this point in time. Like there's so many people that game these days. Like it's not as rare as it used to be. But it's just something that I feel like it's good for the games themselves, and just good for gaming as a whole, because it just makes people curious about what these properties have to offer and what kind of worlds they can explore. So I don't think it's any surprise whatsoever.
It's fascinating to see like these shows popping up and really seeing like the side by side nature of it. Like Fallout right now, it's so crazy to me, because to me what really shocked me is like the realization of like, my God, or the realization of like, my God, like that, just the blend and the time periods and the music and the themes that they're playing with in Fallout are much more in depth than I thought, or much more intriguing than I thought. Like those time periods that they are lost in, you know, are very fascinating. Like the 50s and 60s music and all that stuff, and the blend of those technologies and the wars that were threatening that era and all that stuff is very, very intriguing. And I find it so amazing, like that the characters themselves are not actually driving me, whereas stuff like The Last of Us is more like character driven to me. And when we say world, it's an incredible world. I don't really see that's an incredible world. I think that the show kind of put the world aside a little bit and gave me way more character development than I well, way more character development. I like that as well. It does its job. I mean, it's great. I would say The Last of Us has one of the best episodes ever made on television, and that's the scene with in the farm and stuff. I think that was fantastic, but I think that's the only thing that pops out in that show. Whereas Fallout it's that freaking environment. You can't help but
Yes.
look and try to dissect it. Like you said, you were kind of gripped on it and gripped like your eyes had to be on the screen. Well, that's because they're
Yeah.
so good at building that world, you know? They're so good at the Easter eggs, at the
Right.
the
When they're showing the
environmental
vault doors, the
storytelling.
technology.
Oh my god, they answer things in the show that aren't said out loud that you put together, and it's just that's masterful. That's great. Yeah. Anyways, I love seeing all these shows just pop up and really drive the gaming industry forward into TV. I love it.
Again, it's about time. See, and again, just for obvious, some numbers, because I like number based conversation. Just so FYI, if you weren't aware, when the Last of Us TV show came out, now I got this from GameIndustry.biz. The Last of Us Part One sales jumped
Oh man.
322%. And this was across the PlayStation 4 version of the game, The Last of Us Remastered, and also wind up jumping up the charts to number 32. And that
Nice.
again, that's just some really, really crazy big numbers. And this is what transmedia storytelling does. And if you're not familiar with the term, I have the definition ready to rock and roll just to kind of again evidence-based conversation, because some people are like, what is transmedia? I don't understand what that means. Well, it's something like Game Pass Dad said that has been used for years, like all the way back to the 80s. If you remember the Secret Wars comic, they sold us on the toys, they had the cartoon. That goes for anything that you remember from the 80s: GI Joe, Transformers, Thundercats, He-Man. They had the toys, they had the animated shows to go with it on Saturday morning or after school at 4:30. And when it was back to back GI Joe and Transformers for me, I ran home to watch it before doing my homework. Transmedia storytelling, the definition goes as such, folks. It is a technique of telling a single story or story experience across multiple platforms and using and formats using current digital technologies. And obviously, the digital age is here. They are now spending millions of dollars on these movies, on these TV shows, based on games that already exist. But I do, gentlemen, we got to bring Todd Howard into the conversation because it's an important one. Now, this story I pulled from GameSpot. Now, I'm not a big fan of their work, but they're the ones who did the interview, so I got to give credit where credit is due. It was an interview with Todd Howard, and it was written by Eddie Mac. It's Makuch. Makuch, I believe that's how you say it. And Eddie wrote this April 11th, 2024. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, is very telling. And again, some of the things that he said in this are going to break some hearts. I don't necessarily know that now we are on, well, it's tax day, April 15th. Has some ideologies changed for Todd Howard since this initial interview that was posted on the 11th? Maybe. And obviously, this business that we enjoy so much, and everything that goes in it, comics, gamings, toys, statues, models, video games, we're all a bunch of nerds, right? We all enjoy this stuff. Well, according to the interview, folks, the lead title is Bethesda's Todd Howard responds to the possibility of the Elder Scrolls TV show coming next after Fallout. Could other Bethesda games get spun into TV shows? Now, obviously, this is coming off of an IGN interview that they have quoted here, where Bethesda boss Todd Howard told IGN that currently there is nothing in the works with regards to other Bethesda franchises being adapted for TV. He's talking. He's taking a never say never approach for now, but don't hold your breath for an Elder Scrolls or Starfield TV series. And my heart's breaking as we speak. I'm going to read verbatim from that interview. It goes on to say this, folks. Everyone asks. Now, this is Todd Howard. Everyone asks like about Elder Scrolls, and I keep saying no. And I would approach those, and I'll probably say no as well. You never know if someone is going to click. With the Fallout series, Todd Howard said Bethesda agreed to work with Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy and their Kilter Films company because they thought they could do a high quality job. Todd goes on to say it wasn't forced. It was kind of natural. It was kind of a natural relationship. And hey, this sounds really cool, as opposed to we should have a show, right? It never came from that. This is according to the interview. Now it goes on to say, Howard continues, people have wanted to make a Fallout show ever since we did Fallout 3. I took a lot of meetings and had conversations, and I was always sort of, well, it's not really quite clicking for me. He goes on to say, when Howard met Nolan, however, things changed. Todd and I had been fans of each other's work for many, many years, says Nolan. So look, this is one of those deals, Fuzzy, that immediately for me, as much as I know there's going to be people in this chat that are screaming to the high heavens about an Elder Scrolls, maybe HBO picks it up and does a Game of Thrones type of Elder Scrolls. That would probably be really good. For me personally, I think tip of the spear in regards to where we go from here, obviously a season 2 of Fallout, which has already been greenlit. But Starfield, man, I mean, a Starfield TV series with the care and love and respect to the material like we just saw through the 8 episodes of Fallout Season 1 would be incredible. I don't know who you get to do it. I don't know if who makes it. Is it HBO? Is it Amazon? Is it one of the other bigger production companies? Whoever, and I would imagine that that first rights would go to Prime, more specifically Amazon, because of the job that they did with Fallout. But do you feel a bit heartbroken that he's already kind of said no to anything else? And do you think that the success of the show, and it is clearly a success. As a matter of fact, there was a post from Amazon, achievement unlocked with the power armor going like this, saying it's the #1 across the world for Amazon. That's a really big deal. Let's talk about it, man.
Well, when it comes to Todd Howard, I do believe his mindset is that he still wants to focus on games before he steps away, which
right.
Unfortunately, my gut is once Elder Scrolls 6 is released, that's probably going to be his swan song at that point. So he may not be in the picture that much longer as far as, making that ultimate decision, considering Microsoft ultimately is who owns the IP. But given his involvement with Fallout, it would be awesome to see him, work with, Amazon again for Starfield. Now, I guess the biggest drawback would be overall the cost. And I think that's why probably Amazon's probably the best one suited, because it seems like they are willing to spend any type of budget to make a good film or a good series and show and so forth. So not knocking Paramount, not knocking HBO or any of the other ones, but Amazon looks like they're almost like with Microsoft when it comes to the gaming aspect. They're like that, it seems, right now when it comes to like streaming services and series and stuff. But it is a little disappointing that he doesn't want to do any more of those IPs from Bethesda. But I think it's something where he could change his mind towards finalizing development for Elder Scrolls 6. He could, possibly retire from Bethesda and then, solely focus on being like that go-between between Bethesda or Microsoft and those studios where it's like, hey, you know what? I changed my mind because the reason why I said no before is because I had to focus on making these games. Now
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about the games. Now I can just, spew these ideas or some of the insight and lore into these other creative works and things like that. So I'm hoping he comes around at some point, seeing, like you said, a lot of the feedback being positive, having the success both on the console as far as people getting back into the game, as well as the success on the streaming service itself. Maybe that will influence him. Maybe that will be enough of the carrot on the stick for him to be like, you know what, I still got it, kind of thing. When he's deciding to kind of walk away, because let's be honest, he doesn't need to create any more games to be comfortable the rest of his life after
Yeah.
the purchase of Bethesda or ZeniMax and stuff like that. So I totally assume he'll kind of do like the one lead director did for Tango Gameworks. Once they finally had like a lot of their games wrapped up, and he knew he could kind of hand the torch over to his protege to some extent. He could kind of walk away. Like they convinced him to stay on to kind of finish that. And I kind of see Todd Howard doing something similar for Elder Scrolls. I would love for him to stay around for Fallout 5. And it just feels like if anything comes from this conversation, this is, something that, on Pixelated Echoes, talking with, Randall Thor about it. It's like the only miss in all of this Fallout talk and discussion is that we might not see a Fallout 5 for 10 years or maybe even longer at this point, because there's
it's
could make it that's readily available at this point to do so. So, but
you know,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's an interesting thought. One of which that I know that is a sentiment, and it wasn't the first time that I've heard that conversation. There is something to be said about, okay, so they finished building Starfield. It's out. It's a hit. It's a success. They have the DLC Shattered Space releasing this year. Right? We are all thinking that Elder Scrolls, which is the next big one from Todd and potentially his last one, 2026 is the rumor. Would be pretty a big deal if that was an exclusive for the launch of a new Xbox console. It would be massive. And then obviously they do one of these big games at a time. They're still supporting Starfield. Where is the time and how long would it be? 5 years, 6 years? So are we talking 2032 for the next Fallout? I mean, again, at this point, I think there may be one of those situations where either they make the studio much bigger and they dedicate a studio team to each one of their big franchises, which would kind of divvy it up a bit and take off the pressure. And then when one team was done, they would come over and help, or reach out to Obsidian. I mean, they said they want to do a Fallout New Vegas 2, or maybe they do a Fallout New York, or a Fallout Texas, or a Fallout California. They could do. They can go to the other side of the world. A Fallout. I mean, there's a Fallout London mod that's available. I mean, maybe you reach out to Obsidian and say, hey, maybe we can dual studio this. I don't know. But it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I hope that, considering all of the people that have been involved from the beginning of Fallout or under the Microsoft umbrella now. I mean, you have Fargo, who was like the lead producer when he worked at Interplay over there running In Exile. Like, if they really even wanted to go back to the old style Fallout, where it was more of like your turn-based type of RPG, they could possibly even have that as like a go-between to kind of fill in. Like, I know they're working on Clockwork Revolution, but it would be a kind of a cool thing, considering RTSs and turn-based games are making a little bit of a resurgence. Maybe that's the stopgap to kind of, hold us over until there's a Fallout 5, have something along those lines. Like, maybe they do a remake or a reboot of the Fallout 1 and 2 series in that style. But I think Holly or the Blue Number made mention that, why not just have a small team extracted from In Exile, a small team extracted from Obsidian and a small team extracted from the Bethesda Softworks, have all of them make a small team that just focus on Fallout, and they at least get the ball going or get the foundation stuff started. And as as Elder Scrolls 6 is wrapped up, everybody kind of shifts gears, and then they already have a good bit of the foundation already started. So it's like they can hit the ground running and not have as much of a lull in between type of thing. But any way you look at it, I still would love for Todd to kind of green light or somebody to green light a Starfield TV series. Like there's not enough sci-fi shows out there. Sure, you got Star Wars and Star Trek. I know a lot of people would love to have a Mass Effect series out there as well.
God, yes.
But Starfield, I think, considering EA doesn't seem to treat the Mass Effect IP as great as they probably should, I think we stand a better chance of seeing a Starfield show or movie than Mass Effect, and I'd be all for that because I love that game.
I mean, there is something to be said about that, and that's why we're having this conversation, because I think Amsley, the writing is right there, right? Like, obviously, many of the Fallout games that are seeing this massive resurgence are simply because of non-gamer interest as well as gamer interest. Obviously, we're as gamers always interested to get that transmedia correlation, right? It's easy for us. We see it, we go towards it, and we start playing games that we haven't played in years. But there's something to be said about the normies, the casual audience that are going to find this show and be like, whoa, this is based on a game. I'm going to go check that out. Whether they play on their PS4, their PS5, their PC, or any of their Xbox consoles, these games are going to see new audience. Now, what's interesting about the Starfield conversation is the fact that the game came out, it did very well across 2 platforms. It's only available on Xbox and PC. How long that is, well, we don't know, but it is an exclusive right now. It would take years for them to obviously put pen to paper and get the script written and start doing the work on Starfield. But man, the same resurgence that you saw with games that are years old in Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, a newer one, and of course, we're starting to see some traction with Fallout New Vegas by Obsidian. A Starfield show would be killer. I like I said, I'm not disappointed in Todd. He's only one man, and he's working on Indiana Jones to make sure that's perfect. And then I think that his magnum opus, if you will, kind of like what Fuzzy said, is going to be, of course, the Elder Scrolls 6. And I honestly think that is it after that. But maybe I'm wrong. I'd like to see him stay on for Fallout. It's just Fallout seems so far away. If you're going to do a TV show based on your IPs, and I think Starfield is the one. What about you, Gamsley?
Okay. So I think he said, never say never. That's always leaving doors open. I think this is going to speak volumes to like how he sees that environment. There's going to be way more Fallout shows, so he's going to be involved in those. You could probably bet on it that you said it's green light for season 2, I think, right? Fallout?
Yes, they have already greenlit season 2, correct?
Yeah. As for like using that to service some of their games, I mean, the timing doesn't really matter. I know you brought up Rand's conversation with you, Fuzzy, that like they should have timed it a little bit better. That stuff's always tricky, but that's why seasons exist. Season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's probably going to be 3, 4 seasons if they could keep this like cadence open, and the director loves it enough to keep going, and Todd is having a lot of fun with it. I think this goes to 3 seasons, and in that timeline, no matter when it drops, we'll sell a game. It doesn't really matter when it drops. We saw it with The Last of Us. doesn't really matter. They didn't have a new Last of Us game. It boosted the sales. You don't need to time a new game with it. It's just not necessary, and it's truly like almost impossible to time it. And also, like, it doesn't even have to be that good, right? We saw it with The Witcher 3. I mean, the first season of The Witcher 3 was not exceptional, and it sold Witcher 3 games. It's just all about the right actors, the right cast, the right directors, I mean, with a passion. And I think if Todd finds another director that is passionate about his work, as he's passionate about theirs, I think he'll jump on it, I don't think age is necessarily, or retirement will stop him. I think if the right person falls right at their feet, he'll take it and they'll do it. We saw it with the Halo show, that forcing the things are probably not the best idea and have the opposite effect. So yeah, let's see what happens. Starfield, the Starfield question, I would say Starfield is probably right after Halo, probably the most interesting because it's grounded in some sort of rules that you could abide by and follow, and that makes intrigue even better and the mystery even better. So yeah, Starfield would be one of those games I'd love to see an adaptation for, even though in my opinion it has pretty solid competition. I forgot some of the names, but there's a lot of good strong sci-fi going right now. Same with Elder Scrolls. I mean, it's a tough environment with Game of Thrones out there, but again, Witcher 3 did good, so what am I even talking about? I mean Witcher, not Witcher 3. You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you mean. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we're gonna see something, but I think Fallout's gonna go long. I think Fallout's gonna go the longest, and that's all we really need, to be honest. I don't need the other two, to be quite honest. If they come out and there's the right people for it, cool. But I'm with Todd on this. I'm like, if it comes, it comes, and the door's open, and if not, whatever.
I mean, listen, it's a fine point across the board. Listen, Game Pass Dad, before I bring you in, let me just catch the last couple super chats over here. We have some more additional generosity from Andre Doyle. He drops 2 additional super chats. The first one of $2. He says, Gears movie is being done by the Dune Films writer. Yes, that is absolutely correct. And he goes on to say in his second $5 super chat, Gears film is set to launch on Netflix with Dune writers attached. Jason Momoa and Jack Black and others have just wrapped filming on the Minecraft film. Amazing things. Yeah, that's another one that's going to be, I think pretty much anything with Jack Black is gonna sell. I don't know what the Minecraft movie is gonna actually look and be about, and it is an odd combination when you consider that Jack Black is a part of it along with Jason Momoa. I don't know if it's live action or it's animated, kind of like Super Mario, the film. If it's animated, then it's going to be fantastic because they're going to voice the characters, and that's going to be a lot of fun. But again, more exposure to Xbox, more exposure to Microsoft, because obviously they own the Minecraft IP. Put it this way, it's very exciting. I think that again, all of this transmedia pollination that you're seeing happen for Xbox, they have their hands in a lot of pies. Game Pass Dad, and something real quick, I have a comment here from, let me find it, because it was actually really, really good. It was from Nico from BR. He says, the animated Starfield did look fire. You can't lie. And something? We keep saying TV series. We keep saying film. But what if they did an anime? You know what I'm saying? I think that would be freaking dope. And here's the thing. It's much easier to do animation. I'm not saying that it's an easy job. I'm saying it's easier to do animation as opposed to CG and doing an actual film and or a series. We've seen a ton of really good animation adaptations, specifically on Netflix, who is, by the way, doing a Gears anime. I think that this would be a brilliant way to bring this franchise to so many people, because anime is huge. What are your thoughts on that? That's a great point, Nico. Thanks so much for the idea.
I think that would be a great way to bridge the gap. Like honestly, like similar to what I said previously about like Last of Us and like Fallout, like affecting those games, like Cyberpunk with Edge Runners, like
Oh
that brought a
yes.
gigantic, like I can't believe I didn't think of it, but yeah, that brought a gigantic reinvigoration to that world. And that was downright absolutely amazing in and of itself. Like I honestly, it's like I'm not usually really big on like rewatching like TV shows right away or movies necessarily, unless like they're really good. But like Edge Runners is one that I've watched at least twice, all the way through, and I
What was the
am a fan
mobile
of.
one also that everyone said was amazing? It was a MOBA
Was
game
it
that
was it Dota? I don't think I've paid attention to that one.
No, the
League of
Arcane.
Legends.
Arcane.
League of
That's
Legends
Oh
it.
yeah,
Arcane, probably one
Yes.
of the best shows.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep. There you go.
might have to
There you
check
go.
it out. But no, I think that's definitely if because like you're saying, like to bring the set pieces to life to get all the actors and like the logistics of just creating a live action adaptation. Yeah, it's got to be somewhat easier in some respects to just like build a world in like an animated version. Because yeah, the Starfield like animations they made were really quite amazing. I think that showed a lot of promise, and like they've done it before with Halo also, and told like some great stories in in that respect also. So I would be all for it. Like I definitely over the last couple of years have gotten more into anime as I've gotten older and not really cared about what anyone else thinks about what you're watching or what you enjoy. But it's also kind of I feel like matured as an art form and like become more prevalent in the United States like as an art form, and it really is like an enjoyable way to enjoy a story. Um, and I feel like that could be a lot easier to adapt these other things because of course we all would love to see it. We all want to see more of the things that we love and like basically because not only is it us being able to spend more time in those worlds, it also um brings more because basically like as these properties do well in these other media forms, it brings more players into the fold with us, enjoying the things that we love, but it also adds more money to the war chest for them to bring like Fallout 5 and like these other games and
Yep.
put more effort into everything and bigger budgets and things like that, which I don't necessarily think bigger budgets are always a better thing, but it just gives more incentive for the powers that be to basically give us more experiences. And I do think the idea, which I feel like kind of like seeing a game like Helldivers like take its genre and create a game that we totally could have gotten from the Halo universe. Like I do hope we see more of those mid-level adaptations like we're talking about Fallout and things like that where we explore different types of games in these universes that we already love now that Microsoft has all these studios. Like there's definitely logistical reasons why we can't just have everything, but it would certainly be nice to like explore like we don't just want one type of game from universes that we love. Like all of us, like I'm sure all of us have at least 3 or 4 different game genres that we enjoy. Like for me, it's like racing games, shooters, RPGs, like those are usually some of my favorites. And I play everything across the board and I know I'm not alone in that. So I do hope that we see more of that through like the success of like the transmedia approach and like the power that that brings. Like, but yeah, Starfield or any other Microsoft property anime, uh, I definitely would be excited for that.
I think there's a lot to be said about continuing and using the power of these IPs to bring new forms of media to both old fans, which of course there are a lot of old fans, but that's not the point of these things. They're to bring
Right.
in the new fans, right? They
Well,
they want to they want to attract newer eyes on IPs, and the best way to do it is through something like TV, like film, like anime.
and of course, I would add that I would like it to be situations like this where it adds to the experience, not just doing it to do it, kind of like the Call of Duty approach, where no matter what, you're getting a game every single year because it prints money and there's no reason not to. And they kind of lose scope, or like kind of like Destiny, where they don't want to over deliver things. Like these projects that people are like the people creating them are passionate about, like that's what I'm all for. And
Yep.
I do feel like Todd Howard, like in the interviews, he said that with Fallout itself, he said no every single time to almost everybody because people just approached him wanting to do it. But when he had the right group of people coming to him that are fans of the project that were going to do it justice that he believed in, he was more than happy to jump in. So I would hope that those are the types of teams that are brought together in order to do these sorts of things, and that it doesn't just become like that mindless cash grab that degrades the brand overall, which I do feel like we're getting to a point where uh it does seem like Microsoft is working on the quality of things, and um we all have seen what happens when capitalism does kick into high gear, but I have faith that we're heading in a good direction with like the type of effort being put into these projects.
I mean, I do. I mean, the quality is there, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
care, the respect, and again, I think that if you look back to what happened with the Halo season one, right? The way that those directors and producers talked about the Halo series is why they were all fired. They came out very. Yeah, I mean, listen, sorry, they came out and they were very bullish about. No, we didn't want to be bothered with the games. We didn't want to be bothered with the lore. Some of them didn't even play the game. How are you directing this film? If you
Right.
how are you writing for this franchise if you've never played the game? That is completely removed from the second season. Second season is like god tier, so much better. I mean, yeah, is it perfect? No, but there were some really amazing, epic things in that show. It definitely gets you excited as a Halo fan for season three to see where they're gonna go. But
Right.
I mean,
And
we'll see. Yeah,
if
please
they
continue.
if they really execute though too, like imagine where like Halo Infinite could be, because I mean Halo Infinite really is in a pretty amazing spot. But just with like the same thing happened to the team that launched Halo Infinite, like a lot of those people aren't really around
Yeah,
anymore. Like
they're all
they've
gone.
really
Yep.
shifted. Like I do miss kind of like the narrative idea that they had there, and it'll be interesting to see where Halo goes. But I kind of feel like there's a lot of factors that went into it, like COVID and otherwise, that um, caused us to get the game that we got and the release that we had. But ultimately, it is in a really good spot. But imagine if the first season of Halo released at this level, like that Fallout set, like the type of impact that could have with bringing people back to the fold, playing the games, enjoying it. Like I really, as a Halo fan, would love to see that get its chance to expand further than just the because I do feel like it is growing, but there's still just like a really core group of gamers that still play that. So
Yeah.
I just that's my main concern, but I definitely have faith that the care is there, the quality's there, and that they're working towards it. And on your recommendation, I'm definitely going to give season 2 a shot for sure.
Oh, you're definitely gonna like it for sure. But listen, folks, I want to move on to the final topic, and this one is interesting. This one is very interesting, and I'm gonna tell you why. Now I have the tweet in front of me. I'm a big fan, as you know, of Jeff Grubb. Have been for many years since getting involved in the medium that we're in. Content creation. He's a journalist. He has his own show. Obviously, he works with Mike on a regular basis on Nintendogs. It's a fun show. Jeff obviously is an insider. He gets a lot of hot takes well, he has a lot of hot takes, but he gets a lot of really good information. And obviously, his big contribution to the industry is on Giant Bomb. But he did a tweet the other day, and I want to talk about it because I don't think PlayStation gamers are understanding that the playing field, Fuzzy Belvedere, is changing, and it's changing rapidly. I think that the days of buy my box, buy games A and B and C for the box, and that is going to do it, and then move on to next generation and rebuy those games. That is now that is the old way of thinking. It is an old ideology that is dying. Um, Getting your games everywhere is more important than ever. Again, we don't see a dime of it, but I think that being able to play your game anywhere is a big draw. One of the things that I think we've seen with Sony and why I believe PlayStation as a platform is many steps behind Microsoft and Xbox in regards to why we're even having this conversation. So Fuzzy, Grubb goes on his official Twitter account on to say, I was on Mooch's TV, which of course is Crossfire on Friday. It's no longer Friday evenings. I apologize. I think they've moved it to Thursdays, if I'm not mistaken. So he was on Crossfire, and I actually said it was on Friday. So maybe they changed it back. So I'll read it verbatim, folks. He says, I was on Mooch's TV show on Friday, and the people were losing their minds because I repeated what Sony executives have been saying about needing to find growth beyond its current audience. And he was responding to Daniel Ahmad. Now he is, an insider, so to speak, in the industry. It's at ZhugeEX on Twitter. And Zhuge goes on to say, I just remembered why I don't publicly comment on sales performance of games anymore. Because people lose their minds if you tell them their favorite franchise didn't sell a bajillion copies. Now, why this is a conversation and why this is interesting is because the $70 game situation has come to light once again as it being a potential mistake. And this story, Fuzzy, comes the way of VGC. And this was written the other day about the $70 game. And according to the story, $70 games will go the way of the dodo, believes Saber Interactive's CEO. The former interim Embracer COO believes developers will move to reduce risks and costs. And the story says Saber Interactive CEO Matthew Karch believes the $70 game will eventually become a thing of the past as developers move to reduce costs and risk in an increasingly challenging AAA games market. Now, again, if you look at what happened to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a perfect example of a failure. And this is exactly what I believe Jeff Grubb was referring to specifically in an overall aspect in conversation, that Sony's old way of doing business is no longer working. Their fan base is no longer buying games. It's a proven fact, and it has been even said by Hiroki Totoki himself that they need to find a new audience. Yes, PC is the easy answer. But when you say that there's a potential, and again, folks, this is complete, speculation on my part, that they're sitting on Spider-Man 2018, they're sitting on Spider-Man Miles Morales to spin off, and those games are just sitting there, and no one's buying them. They're not getting a new audience. They got a bit of a push when Spider-Man 2 came out, but since then, no one's buying those games. Is it in Sony's best interest to potentially send those games over to somewhere like an Xbox? I think it is. And I don't think Sony fans are seeing the future in front of them. Let's talk about it, man.
Well, my biggest thing that I've said for quite a while now, and Sony fans back in the day used to tease Xbox fans about, games going to PC day and date, how that will kill off the box. It hasn't killed off the box. Has it possibly reduced some of the enthusiasm? Possibly. But overall, there's still console players. There's still, console players that also play on PC. And then there's just strictly PC players. And those PC players are never going to buy a PS5. They're never going to buy any console because they know they already have the better piece of hardware based on their budget. So with that being said, Sony's going to keep on banging its head against the wall until they come to realize that you're not going to move as many units, which that's the whole thing that they're trying to do when it comes to their games. You're not going to move as many waiting a year or 6 months to a year, putting it on PC after your marketing is worn off, after the hype has died down, after all of the buzz about it or the FOMO potential has kind of washed away. You're not going to hit PC guys over the head and ask for 60, let alone 70, which they are going to start probably trying. You're not going to get them to buy that game the ones that will buy it are likely the ones that are the double dippers, where it's like, okay, they already have a console, they already had a PC, they know the PC version is going to play better because they'll have widescreen, they'll have unlimited frame rate, or uncapped, I should say, or at least the potential depending on their hardware, and they'll have some other goodies that just aren't capable within the PS5 at that point. So those are the only ones that you're looking to gain. And once again, that's the same audience you've already sold to, and they're not going to be the majority. They're going to be the minority of the minority, which are usually your hardcore, which are your vocal most on social media, which are always the much smaller, fan base in comparison to who actually bought the consoles. Sure, some of those, hardcore fans may have bought multiple consoles. They may have one under every TV at their house, but they're not the ones buying a game copy for each one of those TVs. They buy digitally, and they can hop from console to console just by logging in and play that one title. There's no reason to buy 5 titles on that one account in their household. And sometimes that's where that whole number of consoles out there in the wild isn't always the final say. Like, there's still a lot of people that are on last gen at this point. Like, the hardcore or a majority of us that are probably either listening or participating in podcasts and things like that are probably part or closer to the hardcore, where we have, a Series X or a Series S, or we have a PS5 currently. The PS5 Pro is still going to probably only sell to that same fan base. I mean, there might be a handful that have been waiting for the waiting to upgrade from the PS4 or the PS4 Pro, especially the PS4 Pro crowd. They might have been like, you know what, I'm not going to upgrade until there's a PS5 Pro. So those are the ones that haven't upgraded yet, that may be the ones that you gain as new PS5 owners, but you're basically taking what was once a PS4 owner and converting them to PS5. But are they missing on the software that you're offering? I mean, sure, there's a handful of games that are only on PS5 that they couldn't buy prior. Like, they couldn't buy, what do you call them? The most recent one, like the oh crap, I can't even think what Spider-Man 2 was, I think, PS5 only. And then Final Fantasy 16 was PS5 only. Right. And Rise of the Ronin's PS5 only. So there's a handful of titles. So now you're going to get those sales on the back end, which those titles will probably be on sale by now. So when the PS5 Pro comes out, those titles are on sale, or they might buy them secondhand because they could probably get 3 of them for the price of 2 over at GameStop at that point. So you're not selling a new copy. It's just basically passing a used copy that somebody sold off to a new customer at that point. And Sony's not benefiting, nor are the publisher at that point. It's just GameStop benefiting at that point. But the whole $70 game thing, like, I was already mad at PlayStation for charging the $10 upgrade fee when it came to the PS4 games playing on PS5. Like, I just bought the $500 console that came with the haptic controller.
Right.
Why am I paying extra to use that haptic controller that you already sold me? But that's a whole nother story. But my stance on the $70 game aspect has just been, I'm less likely to make that frivolous purchase, even though $10 is not that big of a difference from the 60 to 70. But the difference was when games were 60, and if I had mild interest in the game, if I thought I might get around to playing it and enjoy it, it was like, all right, buy day one, pre-order, buy. Right. It wasn't like a second thought. Now it's like, I've come to realize a lot of those games sit in the backlog. So with that extra $10, it's caused me to pause a bit and say, hey, well, maybe that'll come to Game Pass in a few months. Maybe that will go on sale by the time I actually get around to playing it. It'll probably have all the patches, because we've all been victims now of like these day one patches where sometimes that doesn't even fix a game. It might be 3 or 6 months before the game is actually functional with those patches. So by that point, why not just wait until that occurs, where they have all the updates, the price is probably cut in half or even better, and you're getting the best version of that game at that time. So now with that extra cost, it's like, unless it's a game that I know I'm going to play right off the bat, like your Dogma 2s, or maybe even like your Gran Turismo 7s and things like that, those are the ones I'll still get day one. But overall, like something like Rise of the Ronin, that can wait because I
Yeah,
knew.
I'll get that on Black Friday sale. That's what exactly when I'll pick that up. Yep.
But it's just funny to me that a lot of PlayStation guys don't see all the fun that they poked at Xbox for the day one PC stuff.
Yep.
It's inevitable at this point. I mean, look at Helldivers. Yes, I understand. Live service game, games as a service. It makes total sense. But they didn't do that for Foam Stars. So there's going to be a change in philosophy now that Jim Ryan is far out the door. Hiroki Totoki is the main guy calling the shots, and you already heard from him. It's like, you guys don't, you make great games, but you don't know anything about business. And he's the numbers guy. When you got the numbers guy running the show at that point, there's going to be changes, and you're probably not going to like them like some of the changes we've seen in Xbox. Not everybody, that's a fan of Xbox likes all of the changes that they've made recently either. But that being said, if they have to find new audiences, PC is probably the easiest. And that's probably the best one to accept and get accustomed to like ASAP. But as far as things coming to Xbox, in a lot of cases, it makes sense. Like, look at MLB. MLB is played more on Xbox than it is on PlayStation. And why is that?
Yeah.
It's like, you would think it goes to show that there was a need for a baseball game on the Xbox that was more of a licensed IP that had all the real players and whatnot, and was refined. Not knocking, what was it, RBI that used to be out there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, what do you call them? MLB was probably one of the best ones from launch of their, ever since they started doing it. But there's more titles that would probably do better, especially some of the third parties that had the exclusive deals, like Team Ninja. Considering even Sony guys aren't buying that game, and there's a lot of people on Xbox that liked Wo Long. It makes sense for them to probably hurry up and get that contract wrapped up so they can put it on Xbox or at least PC to recoup some of their money. Same thing with Final Fantasy. Like, I keep on thinking maybe that's the next acquisition that Microsoft makes, just so they can break the contract and kind of fix some of the financial, turmoil that was caused by the previous management. But yeah, I think $70 definitely hurt, on the PlayStation side, even though a lot of their hardcore capped for it. But in the grand scheme of things, it's now time to look at the writing on the wall. PC day and date makes sense. You will get those customers to buy and stop worrying about the pirating. Pirating has existed for like forever and still exists. Like, if pirating was so bad, then how does Steam make money? How does Steam exist? Makes sense? So that's all I got.
No, great points all around. Gamze, I want to talk about this, but before we get to you, I do want to address something in the chat. So I like evidence-based conversation. So, you can say, no one can ever say that this is a fanboy related comment. I called Final Fantasy VII Rebirth a failure. It is. It sold 2 million copies. That's a failure. So someone in the chat, which again, we don't have to name names here, said that Dragon's Dogma only sold 2.5 million. Is that a failure? Well, here's the difference. I looked up the price of what it costs for Dragon's Dogma 2, and it's about $50 million, according to Reddit. Now, again, that's just on Reddit, so take it with a grain of salt. Fuzzy, how much money do we think that it cost Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to make? Was it anywhere between $120 million and $170 million, which is literally 3 times the amount of what Dragon Dogma was to make? Yeah. And Dragon's Dogma, as of today, has sold 2.5 million copies versus 2 million for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So, if we're talking monies, and that's really what this is all about, then yes, it is considered a failure because it didn't sell like it was supposed to.
Yeah, Dragon's Dogma sold more in less time. Was the same price, and it didn't cost as much to make, so there's a bigger margin of profit in pocket.
Yes,
that's the easy math.
Yep. So again, that should answer anyone's question. But Gamsley, let's talk about this, because Grubb is a good dude. I don't think that he console wars. I think that if you ask him what his favorite console war is, it's probably Nintendo. He has a Nintendo show. with Mike, and I'm not surprised that when he went out there on Mooch's show and he said, "Hey, listen, Sony." I'm literally reiterating what Sony executives said. Hiroki Totoki said that we need to find a new audience beyond its current one, and that makes sense. I don't know why people get in their feelings over it. It's a fact. Now, is anything releasing on Xbox? Well, they already have MLB The Show. And listen, folks, we've said this for years. I've gotten a lot of feedback that's negative on it. It does better on Xbox than it does on PlayStation. That's a fact. And you can say whatever you want about, well, it's in Game Pass. Well, maybe you PlayStation players should ask for better and tell Sony you want that in your $160 a year subscription service, because it should be in there, but it's not. And that ultimately is a frigging problem. Where do you see where Grubb went wrong in this? I don't think he's wrong at all. I think that people are in their feelings because things are changing in the industry. And even though Sony is kind of dragging their heels a bit, they're going to be there soon enough.
Yeah, I don't see the backlash on Grubb, to be honest, that in any shape or form. I don't understand it. We've said it on this podcast multiple times. Let's just take names out of the business for a second, so we're not fanboying on anything, okay?
Right.
The point, okay, is that these companies want to keep growing. They don't want to stagnate. Okay, so people in the chat, when they bring up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is amazing and it did this and whatever. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Did this and whatever. It's like, yeah, but the series is stagnant and not growing. It's the biggest JRPG on Earth, and it's been stagnant, if not going down in player base. The player base is aging, same as in consoles. So how do these companies grow their games with keeping healthy margins, right? So Capcom, when you look at their games are lower cost than most games, so their targets are freaking different. I don't know what's so strange, like what we don't understand, guys. You can't compare Dragon's Dogma versus Final Fantasy, all right? Final Fantasy has more than 16 games under their belt. It is a gigantic franchise, and it's selling like the small guy. All right? So let's just put it that way. You can't... Of course it's a failure. Tomb Raider, you guys brought up Tomb Raider in chat. Same deal. I don't know what we're talking about here. Huge budget on that game, and it's sold not enough. So I don't know what we're getting at here. Square wants to grow, so that's a foreboding warning for Sony as well. They're going to lose Square at some point, because Square wants to grow. They need money. So it's either they check their wallet when they're making these games and they understand that you don't need cinema in your game, until they could scale down and just focus on fun and maybe dampen the graphics a bit. Maybe they're better off making a Final Fantasy game like Dragon's Dogma 2 so they can make some money and be everywhere, right, guys? So let's calm down the conversation in chat. Pipe down. There's nothing wrong with what Grubb says. Every company needs to grow. Sony needs to grow. Microsoft needs to grow. And honestly, when they grow and they're everywhere, more choice for us. Why do we care? I don't know why we're having this conversation. Sony needs to step on more platforms because their competition is scary at this point, because they literally have maybe the most powerful franchises in gaming history.
Yep.
And they get the money regardless on what platform they're on. And they have a service that they're going to push. And they're going to be on every device. So that is scary for Sony, because they set a standard for themselves and other people that they want to be Apple. And they want to put out 9 out of 10 games all the time. But guess what? Costs are going up. It's going to take 6 years to develop these things. So what happens when they lose Square, right? I've been saying it forever. What happens when they lose Square? They have to wait for Last of Us 16 to hit in 20 years, right? And it's going to be $600 million. And what if that one Last of Us fails by whatever reason? Last of Us fails. What happens to that game? What happens to the margin? What happens to the money coming in? What happens if that game is a 5? Huh? What happens? They lost $500 million. And people in the chat saying Halo and stuff like that, Halo Infinite. Okay, sure, but is Sony making 300? I don't know, $3 billion. I don't know. Like, they're not the same company, guys. They act a lot differently, and they are a lot different, and they have very different disposable incomes. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know why this is a shock, guys. PlayStation's going to be on PC. Okay? It's going to happen. Square Enix is going to be on PC and Xbox and the Switch. The Switch probably before Xbox. I know we're an Xbox channel and we're looking for the future, and we're like, when is Square Enix games coming? It's probably going to come in the showcase or whatever. I guarantee you it's probably going on Switch 2. Like, Switch 2 is like the first place that Final Fantasy goes. And that's it. But yeah, I don't know. This conversation is weird. Jeff Grubb is just a good analyst with some pretty smart people around him, and he's just making an educated kind of guess and analysis on stats and data, and it's not hard, and we could do it with like grade freaking 6 math. I don't know. What else to say?
It does seem very commonplace. I don't think that's a stretch. I think that when you consider the marketplace, I know that there were a lot of Xbox players, including myself, that still feel certain IP have to remain as console exclusives. But I also have publicly said, and I understand that I'm a dinosaur, and I get it. I grew up in a way where you buy a box, you buy games for a box, and that's where they stayed. That's not the way the world is anymore. I think that Sony players need to realize that there is going to be a devastating announcement for fans of the brand, that's the only brand that they play. And I really do think the first one that comes across the bow that's going to shock a lot of people is going to be Spider-Man. I really do. And I think that's because Marvel might get involved. I think that when you consider that they already have put aside the thought and theory that after spending $315 million on Spider-Man 2 just for game development, and they've already forecasted that Spider-Man 3 is going to be $400 million, where are they getting that money from? Well, they're going to need that money from sales. Now, Spider-Man 2018 and I believe Miles Morales are already available on PC. Where do you go from there? Do you go to Nintendo Switch 2? Can the Nintendo Switch 2 run it? And if you and I've seen some people actually say that, well, no, skip Xbox because I said so. You're a boob if you think that they're going to skip Xbox because you said so. They're going to release those games on another platform that's not PC and Sony because that's all they have left to do. If you want Spider-Man 3, there is no way Hiroki Totoki is going to greenlight a $400 million budget for that game. It's just it's not feasible. Please jump in.
Can I jump in for 1 second? As well as like we like to like romanticize that everything's good and cuddly with all these franchises, but may I just remind you that Marvel movies were the biggest thing ever made 3 years ago, and right now they're not making enough money. Okay? Right. So we like to believe that everything's going to be big forever. You need diversity, and you need smart numbers, and you need to push content in a smart way. And right now, Sony and all their fans, or most people in every fandom, are leaning way too much on the franchises that exist right now and pretending like they're going to be what they are forever. And that goes for Xbox as well. Call of Duty could definitely fail one day. Same with Spider-Man, and that's why they need to be thinking in the future and pushing content in as premium of a way they can, in most places they can, to save costs and to push more visibility and get more money, guys. That's how you avert risk. And Sony having Spider-Man is not a safety net. It's actually quite the opposite. One Spider-Man fail equals Marvel stepping away and going to somewhere else because they want money. Anyways, back to you.
A great point. Game Pass Dad, brother, let's get your hot take on this. Again, Jeff Grubb, I don't think he said anything nefarious. I think people jumped on him because there was a lot of fanboying, and there's a lot of Sony fans that listen to Crossfire because they're a Sony heavy channel. He was just reiterating what Hiroki, Totoki, and other executives at PlayStation have said. Do you where do you think that this goes? Because I think that there are a lot of false narratives out there about Sony remaining the old Sony. I don't think they can exist if they continue that way. They know they can't exist, which is why they are bringing games to PC. But I don't think it stops there. Game Pass that. What are your thoughts, man?
And at the end of the day, it's all console war saber rattling, which I mean can be fun. But there's a reason why I usually make it a point to try and poke fun at like the companies and the decisions that they make, and like and not even necessarily like the developers or anything, but just generally poking fun at that instead of the people, because it is a business and we have to like think about this as a business. And like you said,
Mhm.
it's not going to happen just because you want it to be that way. That's not how business works. Like, they're creating these things for us because they're here to make money. And like
Mhm.
Jeff had said, it's exactly what Sony has been saying. Like, the writing is on the wall a little bit. It's just Sony is one of the last holdouts, but at the same time, in business, we've seen plenty of times over the years, like there's game companies from the beginning that are no longer around because they failed to weather the storm or failed to adapt. And at a certain point, like if consumers get used to a certain thing, like things are going to need to change. And in my mind right now, like $70 games seems kind of like a failed experiment, especially if they're going to create a $70 game and then on top of that try and sell you a bunch of super expensive microtransactions
Mhm.
or DLCs. We've seen plenty of places where the games didn't deliver. Like one of my favorite franchises of all time, I probably will never touch again, like Destiny. Like that one to me like kind of failed me, I feel like. But at that point it's not a problem. Like if people aren't buying $70 games, it's not a problem with the market. It's just gamers aren't buying as many of those games for a number of reasons. It's just economics. The demand is not there all the time for these gigantic games. And if you have a giant budget and you say, "Hey, I need to sell it for this much," like maybe that game, like if it's a economic failure, then maybe that game didn't need to be made that way, or there could be a
Mhm.
different way to
Exactly.
approach it. Like especially this day and age, like right now, after like COVID lockdowns, economic turmoil that we're in right now, like not everybody has the money to shell out for a $70 game more than a couple times a year. So they have to be very careful with their choices. And like for me, that's where it makes sense that Game Pass is approaching the gaming media in a subscription model the same way that we've all kind of transferred our way to enjoy. Like no one paid more than just a monthly subscription charge to watch the entirety of the Fallout series. Like that's just an acceptable way that media is going, and there's still options to buy that media, but you also have the option to buy into a subscription. And like Fuzzy mentioned earlier, that these $70 games, they go on sale so quickly. Like not necessarily even all these sales numbers are incorporating like every single one of those units like selling for that full $70 price. And a lot of times I find myself, if I have to buy a game, like I really don't buy many, like I don't buy many full price games on Xbox because I don't have to. I don't really even buy that many full price games on PC. Like I pay for games
Mhm.
that I enjoy or want to support, but I don't necessarily feel obligated to do so either, because as a consumer, I have those choices. But like if for me, it's like if you just look at the numbers, because like you, Boom, I also like numbers. I'm not good at many things in this industry. I'm not an insider, but I am pretty good at estimates and making educated guesses. And like for me, like I break it down to the numbers, and like people try and sit there and ask like, how is Game Pass profitable, or why does this make sense? Like even at $10 a month, 35 million Game Pass subscribers roughly is $4.2 billion of revenue every single year. And you compare that to these sales numbers on these other games, like I really feel like what I'm seeing with the patterns of like Helldivers and Pal World and those smaller games with, or like even you guys mentioned the revenue, like the actual profit from a game like Dragon's Dogma versus Final Fantasy, which has a gigantic budget for whatever reasons. But if you
Mhm.
look at Helldivers sold 8 million units at $40 a pop. That's $320 million.
Yep.
If the new Final Fantasy only sold 2 million at $70. That's
Yeah.
only $140 million in a similar time frame. And like you compare that with the budgets, like it starts to make sense which direction the industry is going to go, or how something like Game Pass or bringing those games day and date to a subscription service can be profitable, because we all probably have way more subscriptions than we even want or need, and there's problems or
Yes.
difficulties there that you definitely can dive into. But if you're continuing to get a pipeline of value from these companies, it obviously is making enough money for them to invest back into these games or tailor these experiences for those platforms. But it's not something that I see is like struggling, or like console warriors like to bring up. But the thing is, like, the only reason why Sony hasn't changed yet is because they're holding out on providing that premium experience, and they still feel like they can be more profitable by selling those games at $70 day one. But at that point, at the end of the day, to me, consoles are just closed wall PCs at this point. Like, there's not really a like, as these technological barriers are breaking down and consumers get used to other companies offering different options, like Sony is probably going to start to see a slip in that profitability. And anytime like a company like starts to lose money or not meet its projections, they either have to adapt, or they're gonna go away. So
Well, that's
I don't
exactly
think
what's
it's,
happening, right?
yeah. And in this case,
Mhm.
like, Microsoft catches flack, but the other thing I always like to point out is, like, Microsoft's a gigantic company, one of the biggest companies in the world. Like, they don't make these choices lightly. Do they always make the right choices? No. Are they perfect? No. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be a default champion for $1 trillion company, but at this point in time, I do feel like they are providing a value to the consumer. And at the end of the day, like, if you have good games and you're providing those games at a
Mhm.
high value margin, then that is the direction that a lot of consumers are going to follow. And I'm excited for it. Like, I feel like my connection to necessarily even having to have like just the box, or like, I do most of my gaming on PC these days just because I'm fortunate enough to have found a way to make PC gaming affordable to me. But at the same time, like, I'm able to play on my Xbox. I can play on my phone. Eventually I'm going to get a handheld PC. But Sony isn't sticking by and sticking to their guns anymore. They have slowly made concessions. They were the last ones to adopt crossplay. They are bringing games to PC, which at that point, they basically are selling games on Xbox. In my eyes, it's still a Microsoft platform.
Yep.
So I don't think it's that surprising. And it's just kind of a moot argument for people to make or get upset about, because if it's more profitable to sell these games at on all the platforms, because I do feel like before they're going to start reevaluating their budgets or anything else, they'll probably expand other platforms and continue selling these $70 games for as long as possible. But when it becomes less profitable, those dominoes will fall into place, and we will see major changes that could have never possibly happened before. So you just have to be used to change, and I would hope Sony would adapt, because there's plenty of their games that I would play, but um, I just don't have a good avenue to do so until they come to PC.
Great point. Listen, everyone had an amazing points of view. Again, this is not console war based. I thought it was an interesting conversation because based on what we're seeing Microsoft do, we're all. I don't think every Xbox fan is going to agree with some of the moves that they've
Yeah.
made, and potentially some of the moves that they're going to make. There is something interesting, and again, we're going to close it out now because we're a little bit past what the show was normally a 90-minute show. Maybe we'll have this conversation on Friday, Fuzzy. But there is something to be said about Microsoft announcing that Hellblade, as good as it looks, Hellblade 2 is going to be a $50 game, which is something to be said. Now, granted, 8 to 10 hours, I totally get that, but based on the previews, folks, there's something special here, and it's probably going to be one, if not game of the year, in the conversation for sure, just based on what we've seen. Ninja Theory is notorious for their storytelling, not only through visuals but through audio, and I think we're going to see that in May. It's around the corner, but look, $50 game versus some of the $70 games, and this is coming into the Game Pass on top of that. I think that Sony is gonna need to make changes And I really do. Like I said, this isn't console war rhetoric, folks.
Yeah.
What is a God of War going to be on Xbox? The answer is that it absolutely is not. Is Uncharted or Horizon going to find its way to Xbox? I don't think so. I just don't. Do I see Spider-Man? 1,000%, because it's not their IP.
Because of Marvel, yeah.
And it's because of Marvel. Marvel is just up their ante, and now they're taking from 25% now 35% of the profit. So just imagine that for a second. They're going to need to make money, and if they're sitting on these two games that are literally collecting dust, would it hurt Sony to sell those games on Xbox? It would not. They would probably sell anywhere between 5 to 8 million copies easily on both. And if they did a double pack where you got 2018 and Miles Morales, it'd sell 10 million. That's just my hot take on it. But listen, let me just catch up on these last super chats. We'll get everyone out of here. Hopefully you enjoyed the show enough to hit the like button, which would be pretty cool. But if you are new, and I saw a lot of new names here, you enjoyed the conversation, please consider subscribing to the channel. That would be dope. I do this Monday through Friday, 5 different shows, 5 different panels, and all great conversation. You know what? You may not agree with the conversation, but when we are having pointed conversation, I do like to bring evidence-based conversation to you by pulling topics and pulling articles and with named journalists that give you the information. And we don't shoot from the hip here. We give you the numbers, and I love numbers. Numbers, you can have an opinion, but numbers don't lie. We have J Mac drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, shout out to Mr. Boomstick. I see that gray beard. Yeah, brother, I got to shave. It's awful. Thank you so much for that. And Luti La Lienda drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, we need Fallout 76 crossplay ASAP. Yes, 100%. I don't understand how that doesn't exist. That needs to happen. Maybe they make some sort of announcement soon. That would be pretty dope. Let's get to the outros. We'll start first with Gamsley. By all means, brother, sell your brand. Not only your personal YouTube channel, which people should head over and subscribe to, but also you do great work with Asa and Deadly Headley. You got an amazing show there. Sell that brand. Where can people tune in each and every week? And more importantly, follow you on social media.
Yeah, if you want all the crazy, weird takes, go follow me on Gamsley TKD on X. You can find me here every Monday at 12 at lunchtime. And you can find me on Gaming Arcadia, where I am co-host in the Xbox Series podcast every Thursday with Game on Asa and Deadly Headley at 3 p.m. EST. It's a pleasure to be here, guys. I just love talking games. Sometimes I seem a little bit harsh, but and straightforward with the weird business stuff, but I mean, I say what I gotta say, and to me it's obvious, and I'm gonna say what I gotta say. Sometimes it comes off as console war, but come have a fun time on those other channels. None of that stuff, just fun and talking about games, and usually only games, no business or console stuff.
Good stuff, brother. Great to have you a part of this show each and every Monday. Thank you so much for the hot takes. And no, I don't think you go off the handle at all. I think that you just listen. Sometimes you're gonna say things that people aren't gonna like, and you don't do it to be a D. You just do it because this is what it is. And
never.
We definitely appreciate that. Yeah. Fuzzy Belvedere, brother. Let's sell your brand. Tell everyone where they can find the best place for anything and everything when you're talking about the racing genre. What other shows you're on, and more importantly, where can people follow you on social media?
As always, thank you for having me on here. Always awesome being on here with you guys. Love having Game Pass Dad and Gamsley on here. Love you guys' takes, even if we don't agree and stuff. But this episode, we pretty much came to, I would say, overall agreement on a lot of the stuff. But even still, gaming's all it's about, and just glad to be a part of it. And thanks everybody in the chat for joining us. Love interacting with you guys. Love some of the conversation. I know sometimes I can be a little extra as far as the slander, but it's all in fun. But for those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, just follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at fuzzy_Belvedere. You can also find me on FSP on Fun Speculations channel later on tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. And then later on this week, on Friday, 10 a.m., look forward to seeing everybody here for Breakfast with Boom right here on this channel. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. And Game Pass Dad, brother, thank you so much for joining us once again. Obviously, based on your schedule, you'll join us when you can. It's great to hear you. You had some really amazing, incredibly important hot takes that obviously had some numbers to go with them. So we definitely appreciate that. Brother, sell your brand. Where can people follow you on social media? But more importantly, find you on other shows and subscribe to your YouTube channel. What you got going on there, brother?
Yeah, Boom. I appreciate you having me on as always. Definitely going to try and make it here on Mondays as often as I can. I'm just a dad and a comedian and a gamer that always has a soft spot for Xbox, and that's why I created Game Pass Dad to help just promote the positivity that I see coming from Xbox's business strategy. You can find me here on YouTube, Game Pass Dad, where I make videos and shorts from like my live stream and also Xbox commentary videos and gaming commentary. You can find me here on Mondays whenever I can make it. You can find me on the Fun Speculation Network. I might have to try and spin around tonight as well to join the gang tonight, but usually on Fridays for the Xbox Ultimate podcast. I stream on Twitch Wednesdays and weekends and some other times underneath Game Pass Dad in the evenings, usually around 10 p.m. And if you want to keep up with any of that, you can follow me at Game Pass Dad on Twitter or Instagram. So whatever you prefer. But I appreciate the conversations as always, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us, brother. Super appreciate it. Again, folks, a big thank you to all of the super chats and the channel memberships. Thanks that were donated today by Decado. He donated 5 of them. Please, if you did get one of them, tell him thanks. And obviously, if you are someone that wants to support the channel and you can, please hang around and continue to support it, because we take that support and we push it forward. Obviously, we had a $300 giveaway for Easter. We have $3,500 coming towards the end of the year in 3 massive giveaways. Actually, it's 4 massive giveaways. And the first one being that we're giving away 15 copies of Stalker 2 when that game is released, in our small mom and pop way to support the devs. We're buying those games at full price. And if you are a channel member, you are going to get a chance to win one of those first. The first 8 winners are going to be channel members. The second 7 winners are going to be anyone that's in the chat and is subscribed. We also have teamed up with Ben Kenobi, That Blue Number, and Sean Labrie to be giving away some of the Xbox coins that you have seen on the socials. I have all of them. I have the Fallout ones coming. I have Pal World on the way, as well as some Hellblade ones that will be releasing via contests that we're going to do live here on the air. If you do win one of the coins, we will mail it out to you, on our dime. All you got to do is send your address where we can send it. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to wind up doing a 3-pack. I think we're going to try and give away one of the Fallout, one of the Hellblade, and one of the Pal World. And we're going to do a bunch of them. As many coins as they send me, we're going to get them out to you. And we're going to start as soon as I get them. I'll put a post out there on my Twitter account as well as on my YouTube channel. And you'll be able to see when we're going to give those away. And of course, I want to close out today's show with something that's incredibly important to me, folks. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he said, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special.